I made the mistake of playing Subnautica with just base oxygen. Now, I know that doesn't sound too bad, but this was probably one of the most difficult and frustrating things that I've done in quite a long time. Um, I'm not exactly sure how this video is going to turn out because I'm about to sit through 18 hours worth of footage, but I do hope you guys enjoy. And for my sake, please do like and subscribe if you want to, and comment something for the algorithm if possible. I would really appreciate it. And let's get right into this. Well, as I stated before, this is Subnautica with just base oxygen. Now, what that means is I played through the entirety of the game without upgrading my oxygen a single time. Now, because I knew exactly how annoying this was going to be, I went ahead and played on freedom mode just because I didn't want to add any extra stress to my gameplay. But the rules are very simple. Just don't upgrade the oxygen. That's about it. And what you're about to see is multiple nights of frustrating and tedious gameplay as I try to escape the planet of 4546b while holding my breath as much as possible. Here we go. So, with any great Subnautica gameplay, we start by dipping our feet in the water. And I knew right away that I was going to want to get some kind of mobility and a way to get around quicker just because I only had such a short amount of time of oxygen, especially since we're going to be getting pretty deep into the ocean later on. So, I started by making my repair tool and fixing up my life pod. And I went ahead and made myself a sea glide just to be able to glide around the ocean floor a little bit easier, make everything a little bit smoother for me, not too complicated. I, I went ahead and started looking for the sea moth because I wanted to be able to roam around the ocean while not having to worry about getting my breath taken away from me. But before I could do that, I had to make the mobile vehicle bay. So once I had all those fragments scanned, I finished getting my sea moth fragments. And as much as I didn't want to have to rely on this thing all the time, it still made everything incredibly easy. So I went up, I made the sea moth, but I also knew that I couldn't just go around with the base depth module that it had installed in it. So I was going to have to work around and try to get the upgraded depth so that I could explore a little bit more before we got too late into the game. So I went ahead and started focusing on getting better equipment. I had to get the radiation suit because I wouldn't be able to explore some of it without fixing up the ship. Here is my first interaction with a Reaper Leviathan, which some more on that will come about later. But for right now, I was focused on getting inside the ship and repairing the damaged reactor cores. So once I made my way inside, I finished up what I needed to do, and then I promptly made my way back out into the ocean. I headed back towards my base, but I was also going to look for some moon pool fragments because you can't get the vehicle upgraded without the moon pool. And here is where I had my first incident with the Reaper Leviathans. This is where my deep hatred of these stupid sea creatures came about. It grabbed me, it broke my sea moth, and that infuriated me very much. So, like any sane, reasonable person against a giant 5,000-pound fish would do, I started swinging around my knife at it, thinking I could kill it or at least teach it a lesson. But even though I'd tried desperately to teach it a lesson for breaking my sea moth and preventing me from making another chunk of progress pretty easily, it cowered it out of the fight and it ran away like a little goldfish. And this enraged me to the point of forever holding a grudge against these stupid fish for the entire rest of my playthrough. But with that aside, I went back to my base. I made another sea moth because I really can't do too much without the sea moth. That's just how it is. I went ahead and finished getting my moon pool fragments. I made my habitat builder, and after I got the habitat builder, everything else was pretty easy to do. I made the moon pool and I immediately got to work. But I forgot that you can't use the moon pool without it having power. So I had to take a quick detour. I had to make some solar panels. And then I went ahead and I got the vehicle upgrade console blueprint. I then promptly got the materials and went about my way to gather everything to make both the depth module and the vehicle upgrade station. So after I installed the Seamoth upgrade module, I went ahead and roamed around the jelly shroom caves because I thought that I could find diamond in there, but I was mistaken and I did end up just wasting my time. Well, not entirely. I did end up getting the multi-purpose room and the observation room, which I didn't use the observatory, but I did use the multi-purpose room to just stand around in, I guess. But besides that, I went ahead and made my laser cutter after getting some diamonds. I made my way back onto the ship. And this is a crucial part here because once I made it into this room, I was given the option to scan the prawn suit fragments. Now, the prawn suit is what carried me through the entire rest of this playthrough. As tedious as it was to get everything, it made it so worth it. I spent probably 4 hours trying to get gel sacks to make aerogel for this thing. The only way I was able to do it was getting past that ghost Leviathan that you just saw that got stuck. And thankfully, I was able to go into that area that I'm in now, grab a few gel sacks, and then with those gel sacks, I can make the aerogel and finish getting all the other materials to make the prawn suit. Now, once I made my way over here trying to find some lead and lithium and everything, I had another run in with this silly thing, for lack of a better word. It once again broke my Seamoth, and I was just so frustrated that I didn't even try to swing at it this time. I told myself, hey, I'm almost able to make the prawn suit. Let's not be stupid. So I went ahead and went back to my base. I made the prawn suit. And after I made the prawn suit, I remembered that it only goes down to 900 meters. And we're going to be using this thing to get down to the castle in the lava zone. So my first order of business was going to be getting the depth module Mark 1 upgrade. So obviously, I went ahead and saw that I needed nickel for that. Now, I did find what are they called? A time capsule that had 2 nickel ore in it, which saved me a significant amount of time, but I still needed the 1. So I made my way into the Lost River. I found one of the broken down alien containment plants. And as I was making my way out of this Lost River, I was lucky enough to find one piece of nickel that was just hanging onto the wall there, which made everything a lot easier because I was going to try to find some way to get into the tree zone, which I know that nickel spawns into. But I went ahead and customized my prawn suit a little bit. And after messing with that, I made the Mark 1, which allowed me to go 1,200, 1,300 meters, a significant amount deeper. And with that information, I made it into the inactive lava zone. Now, at the time, I was a little confused because I didn't even know that they had taken out single bits of kyanite from everywhere in the game, and you could only get them at the thermal plant, which I didn't know how to get there yet. So I had to go all the way out and find the modification station, and then I had to get the drill arm because the drill arm was going to allow me to get kyanite, a bunch of other materials, all the goods. But since I had the modification station, I went ahead and made ultra glide fins just to make maneuvering outside of the vehicles a little bit easier. And now that we have the prawn suit drill arm, I got my kyanite and I made my way back to the moon pool to make the upgrade Mark II, which will allow us to go into the active lava zone and into the castle. Now, unfortunately, this is where I had one of the first major bumps in my playthrough.
I know you're lying. I know you're lying.
So when I got there, I realized that I needed a blue tablet, which I didn't have and was very inconvenient. So I had to go and craft a purple tablet in order to go and get the blue tablet. But by the time that I got the blue tablet and made it back to the castle, I realized that I needed another blue tablet in order to get into the Sea Emperor Leviathans, which it was just back and forth and back and forth. And it was really frustrating.
If you tell me I fucking need another blue, there's gotta be one around here. I'm not going back to make another one.
I then went back and made another one. And to my surprise, I also needed a ion cube to open up the hatching enzyme platform, which, to be specific, I was just incredibly unprepared for this entire section of the game. I should have done my research. Regardless, I couldn't get my prawn suit out. Mistakenly, I had left it all the way down there without any way to get back up. So I had to ditch the prawn suit, use my sea glide to go back to my base, and I grabbed multiple ion cubes just to be safe. Once I had my cubes, I went back to the hatching enzyme platform. Once I had this, I spent probably 4 or so hours, maybe 5, getting all the materials to craft these. And as you can see here, this clip is sped up to 100 times speed. I was losing my mind because I got lost, I got turned around, I just had no sense of direction. And now, obviously, I could have prevented a lot of this by crafting the compass and looking at maps online, but I'm really stubborn and I'm really stupid. So, of course, I didn't do any of that stuff. But nevertheless, I did end up trudging my way through all of it and I was able to get everything at the end of the day. But by the time that I had finished getting all this stuff, it was like 4 in the morning and I didn't want to play anymore. So I did put the game down here and I picked everything up, I want to say a day or two later. But regardless, once we had all those things, I made the hatching enzymes and I went back to the Sea Emperor Leviathan. I hatched the little younglings, and all that was left to do now was just build the rocket and get off the planet. Now, the rocket wasn't too complicated in the beginning. I just had to do stage 1 and stage 2. Nothing too complicated, but the real problem began when I realized that I had to make ion batteries. Now, ion batteries in themselves aren't hard to make. You just have to have what Google told me was I had to have an orange tablet to get to the area to get the schematics for the ion battery and power cells. So I went all the way and I got the stuff for the orange tablet and I made an orange tablet and a purple tablet because I needed a purple tablet to get into the orange tablet zone. But it wasn't until I got to the schematic that I realized I didn't even need the orange tablet itself. And I was losing my mind. And this next part was arguably the most frustrating part of the entire game for me because I learned that I needed to make a Cyclops part to make this last part of the rocket. Now, in order to get this Cyclops part, you can only make it by building a Cyclops and using the fabricator inside the submarine. Why they made it that way, I have no idea. It's extremely stupid, but I made this big submarine and I got my one little piece all for the sake of building a rocket that wasn't even connected to the submarine. So I finally made my part. And after I made the part, I crafted my last part of this big old spaceship. And after what seemed like an eternity, I finally boarded the rocket and I got myself ready to leave the planet of 4546b. And just take a little listen here. You can hear my relief in this next clip that I took from my stream.
I'm finally leaving 4546B. After all that work and all that struggle, we finally take off in the rocket. Oh my gosh.
So, with all that done, we left the planet at long last. Now, I wouldn't say that the oxygen necessarily made this a difficult challenge. It certainly made it tedious and take a lot longer because of the extra steps I had to go through to make sure I could get to where I needed to go. I think the most struggle came from the fact that I was underprepared for most things and I didn't do enough research beforehand. But overall, I think Subnautica is a good game, and I would recommend playing it if you haven't already. But with that being said, this was Subnautica without upgrading my oxygen. I know it was a bit of a shorter video, but because I had so much footage, there wasn't too much that I wanted to include just because 90% of it was just looking for stuff. But I definitely have some more stuff planned for the future that I hope you guys stick around for, and I'll see you in the next one.